Hello! Howdy, howdy, how's it going? Alright, we've got, let's see, I think I'm here. Let's turn that on. Let's do that. YouTube is started. Twitch is going on. I am here. Alright. And this painting is finished. It's also zoomed in, but that's okay. Alright. How's it going? Distortion, hope you're doing well. Hope everybody's doing well. I feel like every stream I get worse at starting stream. Alright, today is a real day where we do, not a fake day, where we do environments. Last stream I was like, I'm gonna do environments, and then I didn't do an environment. So that was a thing. Mox Light, hello, how's it going? My tea's still too hot to drink. Alright. I think for today, I want to... you know what? I don't know what I want to do. I'm gonna start pushing pixels around. Put color on the canvas. Maybe some blues. Maybe some greens. I don't know. Maybe get some gradients of stuff in there. How am I? I'm doing pretty well. I've already spent, like, I don't know, 6 hours today painting or something. I don't know. I woke up super early. I woke up at, like, midnight. But yeah, anyway. So I've been up for a bit. I didn't take a nap today at all. No nap at all whatsoever. And yeah. So we're gonna see how I hold up today. Because, you know, sometimes when I don't when I wake up early and don't take a nap and then I try to stream and my brain just doesn't brain and you know, sometimes stream goes downhill. But I think today is going to be good because I've spent the day painting, so I've been thinking about art all day, so I feel like if I just go on autopilot, I should be doing good autopilot as opposed to bad autopilot. I don't know. I find that warming up and then being on autopilot is much better than just being on autopilot after like an actual long day where you didn't think about art at all. I find that because then when you're just going through the motions, it's like you've already practiced all them today. I don't know. All right. One thing I want to do today is whatever I paint, so maybe buildings or something, I want to do lots of depth. So depth is going to be the name of the game. Makes sense? Yeah. And I think there's a sweet spot with making art where, like, you want to be not, at least for me, not too, like, alert and sort of overthinking stuff. And I don't want to be, like, conscious of my physical hand drawing the line. Like, I want to be tired enough to where I'm kind of just, I can really, I'm not trying to, like, juggle all these different thoughts where I'm just kind of, like, they fade to the background and I don't have to think about all the stuff. And then I can just focus on one thing at a time, but not tired enough that when I do focus that it's bad, right? Like, I want to actually be able to focus, right? Like, if I'm playing a chess game and I'm focusing, but I'm super tired, I'm just not going to, like, even though I'm focusing, I'm still going to play like garbage. So I got to be in the sweet spot where, like, I can focus, but not, yeah, anyway, and I think I'm there. This might be a stream where it just all works out. But I don't know. We'll see. Uh-oh. I feel some lag coming on. But yeah, Moxlight, how are you? Hope you're doing well. Also, these colors are atrocious. What is happening? Let's just mix some stuff. Let's slap in some reds. I'm just gonna make a new color palette here. I'm gonna have to plug it in, I think. Plugging in my tablet. But yeah, how goes it? You said you're doing well. How am I? Oh, yeah, okay. I already read that. Yeah, I am doing well. My day is good. again, a little tired, but that is what it is. Alrighty. Need to put my windows in the proper spot. Okay. I think what I want, yeah. So I just finished this commission, and I really liked it, but I realized something sort of. I mean, it wasn't. It was an old realization, but I re-realized it, which is you can't do everything in every painting. Sometimes a painting, you have like a thing far in, your focal point is far away from the canvas. Other days, your focal point is going to be close, and like you can't have them equal this. You can't do all the background stuff and all the foreground stuff. Some days you're gonna, you want a lot of sort of like lead in from foreground all the way through the painting, and other days you just have like a one object in the midground, and that's that, and there is no foreground really. And so you can't really do everything, and I've found that I've been sort of, after painting on this painting for quite a while, I've found that I want to do more objects that are large and overlapping in the, like, I don't really have overlapping foreground, midground, background this painting. I mean, I did have some clouds in here that are cropped out because this is zoomed in, but it's not like significant, and the clouds feel more just like sort of background. They don't feel, I don't know, they aren't majorly overlapping, and it doesn't give that sense of like a primary, like multiple focal points, or that the focal point is the whole thing. And so that's, I think, what I'm going to do today is try to have something where the whole foreground, midground, background type thing is all the focal point. Like, it's all just as important. So like maybe part of a building here, and then I have detailed stuff back here. I don't know. And then like something else over here. Good day. Hello, Faux Pew. Oh, I have an update. The prince arrived. I think it was you, right? You redeemed Prince? Was it you? I can't remember anymore. But yeah, the prince have arrived. Now I just have to send them out, and I will do that probably tomorrow. Because, I have to actually like, package them up and stuff. So yeah, the prints that people have redeemed are here. So there is no wait. Stramigal, hope you're doing well. How goes it? I redeemed prints. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, they've arrived, so now I just gotta send them out, and then they'll get to you whenever, because I don't actually know where you live yet. I haven't looked at it. But whenever they arrive, they arrive. Hopefully it'll be quick. I'm well today, thanks. Oh, glad to hear it. Alright, maybe... Alright, so this could be a building that we're looking at the top of. Maybe we do... Well, let's focus on... I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe some golden glows, Like, Ooh, I've got an idea. What if we make all of this really gray, and then we slap it with some glow dodge? But yeah, what's everybody been working on lately? Anybody doing anything exciting? Or it doesn't have to be working on anything. Like, anybody doing anything exciting just, in life. Any big things. I was mentioning the other day about how I would like to do commissions. Not commissions. That's not what I was mentioning at all. How I'd like to do conventions. And so I did look into them, and I'm going to have to talk to, like, my brother or something and see if maybe he wants to go with me. And because, well, transportation isn't an issue, but also just it'd be nice to go along with somebody who can, like, help out and just hang out, and maybe who would also want to see the convention, like, once he helps me set up. So I looked into some stuff nearby. There's only, like, I don't know, there doesn't seem to be a lot super nearby, but there seems to be some stuff. So maybe in, like, next year, so probably not this year, because I have never done it before, and I want, like, plenty of prep time. And, yeah, so anyway, maybe next year. But I want to try and start getting into it and like, you know, planning and basically being like, hey, just a heads up, like if this thing were if I were to do this thing, would you be willing to like, would you go with me? And basically just trying to, solidify some plans ahead of time. So that's exciting for me. Been looking into that. I want to make it a reality. Also, I've done a painting just like this before, where we had like 3 tower things. But I don't know quite what I think last time I did this, I put a waterfall here, and it didn't look great. I think today I want to do layered towers. More big, medium, small. More. Oh, ooh, I have an idea. Like on a hill. So imagine this is a hill. Ooh, I have an idea. Okay, hold on. Hold your horses. I've always found that to be an amusing saying. Hold your horses. Which obviously it comes from the time when people had horses to hold, because horses can get like riled up and stuff. And because they can get like eager and stuff, and so you gotta like hold them back, But it's still just a funny saying. Hold your horses. Hello, Theddies. How's it going? Howdy, howdy. Hope you're well. All right. Ooh, I'm already liking this as a composition. Well, kind of, actually. That's not true. I say that and then I immediately regret it because I don't actually like it as a composition. There's some things I like about it, but I wanted hold your horses. Yeah, it's a funny saying. I enjoy it. I enjoy silly sayings like that. I never remember to use them, but I do enjoy them. I am well, thank you. I hope you in the chat are well too. I'm well. I think chat is doing pretty well. Everybody who have asked has said they are doing well, so we'll just assume they are. And yeah, everything's good. For me, it's sort of my weekend in a way. Like it's funny because I actually probably do more on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday than I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday has my big, non-art stuff to do, which is annoying and it makes it feel like not a weekend. Whereas with stream, I actually feel like it feels like a weekend kind of. Well, Friday is like an official weekend day for me because I don't really have anything going on Fridays, not really. And so that's kind of it's nice. So, and also just having finished up a project that I've been working on, and then I'm kind of free in a way. So yeah, I'll probably play. I think there a new Minecraft update that just dropped or something. I'll probably play that later today, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'll do. But yeah, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here. I'm trying to make some sort of like this just doesn't feel good. Yeah, just saw it. The ghast thing. Yeah, there's baby ghasts, and then you can make them grow up, and then you can ride them, and then you can float around, and probably will help you build stuff. Which, honestly, I don't even care about. Like, I just think it'll be cool to have a bunch. I actually like one of the things I like because this is sort of the way that I play the game. And for those who don't know, you probably do know what Minecraft is, but there's lots of ways to play it because it's kind of a sandbox game. And one of the ways I tend to play it, at least in my current sort of hardcore survival world in Minecraft, is to take animals that exist in different biomes transport them ludicrously long distances into like my base, and then build something based on that animal. So like, but and they just added a whole bunch of variants of bunch of different animals for different biomes to like make them more populated. Um, I do not know what Minecraft is. Please tell me. Uh, Howdy, Skittle. How's it going? Hey, Casey. Minecraft is a game where you build with blocks. It's basically like Legos. There's a whole random generated worlds. It's infinite in size, or not really, almost infinite in size for all practical purposes. They have tons of different biomes, and in each of the biomes, you have different types of uh, materials, so different types of trees. You have different types of animals. There's lots of little things, flowers, things you can collect. There are zombies. At night, zombies come out and try to kill you. And if you did, and doing some MTG. No, I just thought it was funny. I've been trying to spruce up my title game. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, maybe some MTG style lands. So I just finished a commission. This is here. I'll share a cropped version of it. So I just finished this, and I'm pretty pleased with it. And yeah, so it kind of lands. I guess lands from Magic the Gathering, that vibe. Yeah. But anyway, no, Minecraft. I have a lot of fun with it. There's a good mix of survival and building and exploring. I think the exploring is one of the coolest things because the terrain generation is really neat, and there's just also a lot of interesting interacting mechanics that do things in interesting ways that you can. I don't know. It's a lot of fun. I love the flying castle. Ah, thank you. Yeah, this was a commission I just finished up. There is more to the image. This is zoomed out because it's not necessarily clear that it's floating in this because it's cropped in. But when we zoom out, you can tell better. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It was fun to paint brighter materials. If you guys probably have noticed that a lot of times when I block in silhouettes, I block in very dark shapes, right? Naturally just dark against light, making silhouettes like that. So it was kind of a challenge in some ways to, I mean, not too much, but to do brighter stuff. It's just not something I do a lot of. And so, yeah, that was nice to sort of do like reverse silhouettes for all this stuff, right? Because when I make it grayscale, you have to be able to see the stuff. So to make sure that you have these bright shapes against dark. So yeah, a lot of playing with values. Also like caring, like in this spot, for example, you see how it kind of starts to blend in, but trying to make the saturation or colors just different enough so that if you actually look at it, you can still see it, no problem. So there's a lot of little like, I don't know, it was fun. It was a fun project. I really enjoyed it. Gotta do some fun design stuff with little shapes and whatchamacallits and stuff. Yeah. But this one, I thought it would be fun to do like a stack of buildings. So it goes downward this way. Yeah. But yeah, Casey, I hope you're doing well. Also, I don't know if you were actually serious about asking me to explain Minecraft, but yes, there are zombies. Although you don't have to play in survival, so a lot of people play in creative. Um, Contrary to maybe what some people might think, some people are like, oh, it's like art, it's creative, it's building. Building is my least favorite thing in Minecraft. I don't mind it. I do like building. I like making a cozy little place, but I don't do like big builds. I I much rather just like explore and do sort of challenges that are like, again, sort of like my transporting animals from far away that are maybe not easy to get or to first to find and then to transport them. Like I enjoy that stuff, and I enjoy it all in survival. I don't really like the creative mode. I've never really played in creative mode in Minecraft, and I don't have any intention of doing it. Um, there was a streamer who, I think it was gosh, there's a streamer I was just watching. I think it was Art by Festa. I was lurking in their stream, and they rated a Minecraft streamer. I think it was them. They rated a Minecraft streamer the other day, and this streamer was doing they were playing in their not their own server, but an SMP, so like a survival multiplayer server. And I think from what I could tell, because I didn't know the name, but the server every one of these servers, oftentimes people who host them will set like certain rules. And this one seemed really fun. So as far as I could understand, the server rules were basically PvP. It's a PvP server, and you could sabotage resources, but you cannot destroy buildings. So no destroying people's builds. And it was a creative. It's not creative. Sorry, it's survival, but it's a building server. So the goal is to build stuff, but you're kind of trying to stop other people from being able to build stuff. Um, but there's no once they've built something, you can't destroy it. So like, if you're out, I don't know, mining, and someone else stumbles across you, like it's all fair game. Like you can beat the crap out of each other. I thought that would have been a lot of fun to like add that extra. Yeah, it's sort of yeah, exactly, guerrilla warfare. But like you also want to build your cozy little base, but there's more like incentive to like focus on building, and it's not really a PvP server, but I mean it is in the sense that you can kill each other, but it's yeah, I don't know. It's just it sounded like a lot of fun. I don't know. I don't think I could get myself into it because it seems pretty like exclusive. A lot of these servers, the way they run is they are basically like a vetted, as far as I know, a group of people, and oftentimes these people will all create content around that server. So like, there's a popular one called Hermitcraft, which is like there's a big server, a bunch of these players who have been, you know, specially invited and to build all these things, or you know, all different with different skill sets and different building styles, and then each of them make content with each other in that server. So they do like a little bit of, I guess, kind of role play type stuff, but some of them are just more technical builders. Some of them just like to do shenanigans, other thing, there's a whole bunch of things, but it's basically they all make content within that server, and so it's kind of like a TV series, if you will, where each of their you can kind of go to any of the members and sort of view like the content they make and follow it. Kind of, you can kind of follow the server from any of their perspectives, and so it's a pretty cool idea, and I think a lot of people try to take after that. And so I it's hard to get into those types of servers, obviously not the big ones, but or especially the big ones, but even smaller ones, I think they can be pretty tight knit. But yeah, if anybody knows how to get in, I don't know, if anybody has a good old Minecraft server, let me know. Hit me up. If it's popular and allows you to basically just play on your own, but also with other people sometimes, but not mandatory. I've always been a bit of a hermit player. I prefer to just kind of go off and build and stuff. But anyway, okay. Mostly joking, poking fun at myself for being one of the like 10 people under 40 who haven't played it. I mean, I think some people definitely view it as like a children's game because Minecraft is it's like building with Legos, and it's kind of, kind of kid friendly. It's not a hardcore gaming type thing. Um, but I don't know. I don't view it that way. I just think it's just fun. It's chill. It's like a cozy game. It's I don't know. It has a lot of elements of cozy gaming that I really like. I don't really play it that much, but it is fun to play every now and then. And they've been doing more and more updates, like faster updates, which is really cool. And that's something that always appeals to me, is when games constantly add new content, and then you can go and explore that new content, and then you can get bored of it, and then you wait, and then a few months later they give you new stuff, and you keep getting to test all this new stuff. That's always been very appealing to me. Hi, Nostro VG. Hi. How's it going? Okay, I want to try something. I want to raise the roof. Literally. I raised it up. Perspective kind of failed there, though, because that happens when you draw stuff in perspective. You can't just move it around the canvas because it's going to ruin the perspective that you did. But luckily, when you draw in shapes and you haven't really planned out your perspective, you actually can do that. That's one of the benefits of painting with big shapey stuff, by the way, is that if you draw a square, even if this square is going to represent something in perspective, you can still move it up or down, and it's not going to ruin the perspective. You know you forgot No Concept. Oh, No Concept is amazing. She's great. She said you are a concept artist. I don't know if that's totally accurate. I do design my own stuff when I'm working on it. So, like, I start without a plan, and then I come up with a plan, and then I design for the plan, kind of. So, in a sense, I think anybody who does a lot of their just art for themselves are kind of filling that role of concept artist and illustrator. So I mean, in a sense, I'm doing both. I do have a design background, and so I feel like I know a fair amount about designing for a goal, um, and making things functional. But I wouldn't call myself like a professional concept artist because I'm not currently working as a concept artist. But I have done, some smaller concept art projects. So in a sense, I guess you could call me that. But don't want to mislead people by making them think that I'm working on like, the next Harry Potter movie or something. Not that there's going to be one, but insert big thing. I don't have like big accolades to my name. I don't know why I used Harry Potter as an example. That's just the first thing that popped into my mind. But I do paint a lot of environments. I do design a lot of environments. And I think designing environments and focusing on design is the thing that I enjoy. So in that sense, I'm doing environment design and concept art. But yeah. I mostly start out with lots of shapes, just trying to get some sort of sense of what I want to paint. I don't always know what I want to paint at the start of each stream. And I think in this case, I have a little bit more of an idea. Putting some greens in here. There we go. Yeah, so I always like to start with a whole bunch of little thumbnails, just idea sketching essentially, and then I pick an idea as a community. We vote at the halfway point of the stream. We pick one of these paintings, and then I'll work on it till the end of stream. So like something I just finished here. Well, this wasn't a thing we did on stream. This was off stream. So like this. I have other stuff. Oh, I'll share more stuff. Not everything turns out super great. Sometimes, here's one from a few streams ago. We did a whole bunch of little sketches. We picked a sketch. We picked a spooky sketch. And then I worked on it till the end of stream, and it looked like that. And so, just little. Sometimes they're very simple, things that could be, in some cases like splash art. In some cases, it could be concept art. Sometimes there's ideas in here that are kind of neat, and we could do something with. But a lot of times they're just, just little sketching environments. I think I would probably call myself more of an environment illustrator. Yeah, I would call myself more of an illustrator, even though I do the designs for the paintings that I'm painting. It's also with how few strokes you create a whole landscape. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times they really are very simple. I mean, trees can just be a few strokes, and the big thing is, your light and darks, and you want your stuff to look like it's, if it's in black and white, you should hopefully it should still read as an environment, whatever it is you're painting. And, that's kind of the goal typically for me is to make stuff look, to be easily readable, have a appealing composition, have some sort of an idea of where I'm going with it. And yeah, sometimes we come up with like a little story or something. I normally also have some sort of not plan, like something of each painting will have something that I can practice. So I can always turn them into a bit of a study. So like, for example, this one, I want to do, like, have actual perspective stuff. Um, so like if there's like a walkway or something, that's not what I meant. Well, actually, yeah, something like this where if there's a walkway, perhaps, then we have shadows casting across the walkway. Uh, just simple stuff like that. Um, I don't know. Every painting's different. But I am always happy to answer questions, especially if anybody came in from No Concept stream. I guess I'll shout her out. Shout out NOU Concept. Is that how you spell her name? Yeah. Because she does a lot of educational stuff, right? She's a very good teacher. And I'm probably not a very good teacher. I feel like I can explain stuff if I know exactly what I'm going to explain, but I don't normally have a plan ahead of time, so it's not always, the most, like, well thought out. This one, we can come in here with some... I think I want greens and yellows in this one. That would be fun. Greens and yellows. Again, I'm very, very painterly. I don't typically know at this point. Like, right now, I don't know what this painting's going to be. I'm thinking something with trees. I would like to do something with some sort of architecture. So I may, start transitioning into sort of a perspective or something that I feel like could be fun. So I'm already thinking, like, maybe if I were to draw some shapes like this, for example, I could put buildings or the roofs of buildings around here. Maybe there's a bunch of little, kind of like this one, how we have these little things over here. Maybe there's something like this, but with roofs, sort of like around the trees, or maybe there's a giant tree up here. And this is the stage where I'm, this is kind of like concept art, where, I'm coming up with an idea. Once I have that idea, then I have to paint it, but I also have to design it and make it make sense. So like maybe there's a giant tree here, maybe around the tree there's little areas of like little platforms where maybe there's buildings or something. I don't know. Maybe these platforms stick out in different directions. And so maybe you get these little platforms. Maybe they're very reddish because, complementary colors and all that. No, so my background is in landscape architecture, which is design. It's a design field, like architecture. Landscape architecture deals with, in real environments. So you're in all cases you have a main goal you're designing for, and it's obviously it's different. It's not the same. It's not a... I'm using the broad category of design here. But yeah, so you're designing, your things have to be functional, right? It's not just make something pretty, which is, I think, oftentimes one of the things that artists probably don't have, because, oftentimes art is just making it cool. And so in actual design, you have a goal and you have to expand on the goal and you have to meet your, objectives of whatever they are. And sometimes you add additional things in, and like, I think it's very similar to, I mean, of all the stuff I've seen about graphic design and architecture and concept art, like, there's so much overlap in sort of the design process, right? Thinking of design as a process as opposed to just like, I have an idea and then you paint the idea. Like, that's not really designing as such. Like, that's more, I mean, I guess it kind of is, but not really. Like, you're not necessarily going to get good results if you just have an idea and then you put the thing on the page. Like, there's a reason it's, what's called the design process. There is a process. You can research, you can do like your idealized version, then you do your version with the constraints, and then you do iterations, and then you sometimes, as you come across new problems, you do more research, and like and it's not just this, like, I don't know. I think there's and I don't know. It's hard to explain, I feel like, because in some ways design is such a broad topic, and there's lots of, I mean, there's entire like disciplines of various designs and or design disciplines, and all of them sort of have, probably many courses that you would take over the course of your schooling of learning how to design. And then, it's one of the few things where you can't just complete, I don't feel like it's as easy as just watching a YouTube video and like, I understand design. And like, because I think it's one of those things where it kind of, when it happens well, you know it, and when it happens poorly, you also know it. But to actually do it, it's hard because you have to sit through a lot of, like, there's a lot of different ideas around it. So anyway, I really like it. I enjoy designing stuff. I enjoy design as like a, whether it's graphic, well, I'm not a big graphic designer, but, concept art or landscape architecture or whatever. But yeah. So, not graphic design, but environment design. And I should point out that technically my degree is not that relevant to what I'm doing, other than the design stuff, but most of it has nothing to do with fantasy landscapes. Most of it has, there's a lot of like rules and regulations and codes and laws that you have to follow, and guidelines of like best practices, and like there's tons of stuff when it comes to when you're building with real materials and knowing the material. There's a little bit of material science when you're building stuff in outside. You have to know some soil science. You have to, basically, it's very interdisciplinary, and you also have to know where to look, right? If you're building on certain grounds, you have to make sure that you check for all the underground wires, and you have to know what kind of soil you're building on so that you can make sure that your stuff isn't gonna like sink or tip over. And if you're building with certain materials, you need to know a little bit about those materials. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you have to know where to look, right? You have to be able to say, this is relevant, I need to go research that. This is relevant, I need to go research that, right? And that is a super relevant skill in art as well, where you come across something you don't know and you're like, I know enough to know I don't know what I'm doing, right? And then you could go ask someone or find out. And I think that's a lot of designing. When you're designing for something that interacts with a lot of people or a lot of different disciplines, like there's a lot of, it's like if you're building a house, you aren't a plumber, you're not an electrician, right? You're not a irrigation installer, but you have to know about those things, right? And so that's kind of, if you're a designer for creatures, you need to know some human anatomy, you need to know some creature anatomy, but really you need to know also some like biology and just understanding maybe why and how things kind of came about, so that you can draw on that. If you're designing for a certain type of environment, maybe you need to know a little bit about plants and rocks and different climates, and knowing what survives and how and like where, and like maybe there's certain mechanisms that certain creatures have that keep them alive in cold weather that I'm not aware of, and but you as a creature designer might need to know that, right? And so you would know just enough about those things to know where to go and look them up and research for whatever design you're working on, right? And that's something that I think is, I mean, that's just like a small part of it, but that's, I think, a big, well, not even a small part, that's a big part of it, right? It's just knowing where to look and solving problems. So yeah, I love that stuff. Okay, Asia says, hello, Joe. Hello. I won't be able to be watching today, so here's what I came to be in art class. Oh, very nice. Let's take a look. Oh, it says still life. I see a bottle, a skull. This is cool. I always love seeing what people are working on. Thank you for sharing, Asia. Casey says agreed. I feel like I'm constantly having to explain that design and illustration are two sides of the same of the art brain. The number of times someone asked me to design their small business logo after they find out I draw it. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I mean, it's funny though, because in some ways, illustration does a lot of designing. It's just slightly different. Like you're still solving problems in very much the same way. Like when you're setting up a composition and you're going through ways of storytelling, and just because you have a story doesn't mean the first image you put on the page is going to tell that story in the best way, right? That's a type of design where you're setting up your illustrations and planning them out, especially if you're doing like a storyboarding type thing, or you're setting up a book dummy and you need to plan the whole, essentially you're storyboarding your whole thing. There is design in there, right? Because not every pose and not every camera angle is going to be ideal. Obviously, design takes into account a lot more things. It's not just visual design. I mean, I would argue that is more of a graphic design type of thing. But I don't know because I'm not a graphic designer. But there's still like that kind of thinking still applies to illustration to some degree. But not as much as, I mean, there's still a lot of like other stuff, right? When you're talking about design, there's a lot of like nitty gritty stuff where you have to like understand the nitty gritty, which is not that relevant in most illustration because it's more about like visual designing the visual experience, so to speak. So I don't know. I feel like anybody who gets very good at illustration can probably learn any sort of design stuff pretty easily. Like I don't think it's probably gonna be that hard for them. But yeah, I don't know. And like pretty much everything I do in painting is a combination of both, right? If I'm making my own painting, I'm doing my own design, right? I'm designing it myself. Um, and then of course I'm also illustrating it sometimes. Sometimes I just leave it sort of as a one-off design and I don't do any illustration and it just stays the way it is. But yeah, there's a lot of overlap, but also there's a lot of things that aren't overlapping, and so yeah. Ooh, this feels like a little bit of a swamp. This is kind of my problem with English and art. I have a good understanding of it, and they think it came to me naturally. Oof, yeah, that definitely happens. I get I mean, I do get a little annoyed at that. I mean, not really. I don't think that happens so much anymore. Well, it kind of does actually. It's to me, I don't even think people true. I don't even know. Sometimes I get the sense that people do believe that, but like, okay, so I like to browse Reddit because I'm a degenerate. Um, but there's a subreddit which is basically what's it called? Um, basically just like super awesome stuff. What's the name? What is the name of the subreddit? Basically, it's just people doing amazing things, right? And so whatever, if somebody finds something that is a person, maybe it's a juggling act, maybe it's maybe it's some mundane, maybe it's a construction worker who's just exceedingly good at their job of whatever they're doing, and they, are tying a knot in like super fast and all these things, or maybe they're on a production, whatever it is, just people being unbelievably good at things. Whenever it comes up though, whenever like on pretty much any single one of these videos that you can go to, the comments will all be, how do you even find out you have this talent? Yeah, you think you just wake up one day and realize you can juggle 15 bowling pins? Like, come on, like, get real, people. Like, and it's constant. Like this is the it's almost like a phrase people repeat. Is like how do you find out you can do this? You don't just wake up one day, you know. It's so I do think there is a lot of people who feel like they just need to discover their hidden talent, you know, or it's like you have this hidden talent and you know it just needs to be unlocked or something. I don't know. It's this weird. There's definitely a weird way that people think about it. And then some people will just say, "Oh, you're so talented," and it's a compliment. And I don't have an issue with those people. Like it's annoying. I have an issue with the language a little bit because I think it does sort of perpetuate some of the misconceptions. But mostly, it's just people being nice, and you know, I don't have a problem with people being nice most of the time. But yeah, so it's I don't know. I'm always a little bit it can definitely be a little annoying, I think, when seemingly people are attributing your work to like, oh, you must just be built different. So yeah. Nostrov says this reminds me of Monster Hunter creatures designs. I'm not sure that they are biologists and know everything about the to create monsters, but they still look credible enough. Yeah, I mean exactly, and I think another really good example of this is Avatar. So Blue People Avatar, their creatures make a lot of sense, right? They've designed their plants and their creatures, and like they've sort of there's a story, right? Whether or not these things could exist in that way, they look like they move in a certain way, they interact with the environment in a certain way, and they make you know a lot of them are based on real creatures but different so that they can use sort of the things we do know about evolution to like and how creatures may you know what they thrive at and how they look like you know like there's the classic you know prey animals oftentimes have their eyes on the sides and predators will have them in the front which like you know maybe that makes sense if you want a prey animal to be more aware of its surroundings um, and I think that's cool, right? And I don't know if that's always true because I don't, again, not a biologist, but those kinds of ideas, right, where you know, knowing that a tail is sometimes for offense, but a lot of animals use it for stability, right? So a lot of animals use it for like there's lots of different things, different parts of you can be used for, and understanding those helps you design them. And I actually at one point wanted to do creature design is like I wanted to sort of focus on it but anatomy is hard. So here I am doing painting environments. It's true. A lot of herbivores prey animals, especially ungulates. Yeah, I feel like you know quite a bit about that. I feel like you're very well versed in biology and animal stuff, Casey. Casey does a lot of animal studies on her stream and talks about different animals and uh, yeah, it's very very fun. For those who don't know, Casey streams. Shout out Casey Snow Art. Great streamer. If you enjoy illustration and animals and rambles, you'll be in good company. So I feel like yeah, okay. Casey says, funny that you say anatomy is hard, yet there are so many elements that go into environment painting, way more complex in my opinion. Big time goals. You know what's funny? I actually kind of in some way agree, but not really. I feel like for general skills, environments have a big curve, kind of like well, a steep learning curve. It's difficult at the start, because there it is like a juggling act, right? You have to juggle so many things. Whereas if you're just doing like you know, if you're just painting an animal or just painting a portrait or just painting a figure standing there or maybe they're doing a pose, like you're not juggling as many things. Like to me that I feel like there's a like to be really good. To me, I feel like you can get away with a mediocre environment much more than you can get away with a mediocre figure drawing. However, I think understanding the basics, there's fewer things to worry about when you're doing a figure drawing, right? So I think in terms of learning, one feels approachable because it's like I know what I need to learn, I just can't do it. And then environments are like I don't even know what I don't know, right? Because there's just a lot of crap to learn. But once you start learning it and once you can start juggling it, it's like, okay, I don't need to be an expert at any of them. I just need to know them and I need to be able to juggle them, right? And so I feel like it's kind of different, but yeah, I mean, I do get it. I environments are hard for a lot of people for that reason, I think. I still think they are in some ways. I mean, I don't know. I feel like with environments, you can still break it down, right? You can say, I'm gonna draw a rock, right? And then you draw one rock, and you're like, okay, well now I know how to draw a form. Now I'm gonna put three forms. You know, here's one rock, but now I'm gonna put some smaller rocks in my scene. And so here's some small rocks. You know, here's a big rock, and oh look, you have an environment, right? You have three giant rocks, and now you have an environment. And like that to me is a very approachable way, right? And then you okay, well now maybe these rocks are a little bit more complicated in their shape. You know, maybe they have some additional little things on them, and then you know before long you're like, okay, well now I'm gonna make some. You know, now I need to know some perspective, right? And so you do something like that, and pretty soon you're like, oh, I have an you know an ocean, right? Or I have a beach or a shore or whatever you want to call it. Um, and then there's these mountains here. And of course, you'll need to learn some value stuff, and you'll need to learn, I mean, a lot of perspective. But like, it's not like it's still very simple, right? There's not a lot you have to learn. It's just already you're juggling perspective and overlapping shapes and values and you know like it can get pretty hard, I think, for a lot of people very quickly. Um, Whereas like figure drawing, you know, practice gesture drawing. You know, practice. I still think, and maybe this is my unpopular opinion of the day. I think most people's like struggle with figures are still perspective. Everyone's like, "Oh, anatomy is so hard." I think anatomy is not as hard as drawing complex forms in perspective. I think that's far harder because you can look at a you know the shoulder muscle. Can you rotate that in three-dimensional space and draw it accurate? I can't. I'm not good enough at perspective to do that. um I think and that sort of getting from being able to draw like something from a photo to being able to sort of do the gesture like on the side and just do a gesture drawing and make it look good and then try to like build on top and do simple forms. That is hard if you don't know perspective. So I feel like if you can get down perspective and be able to draw cubes in any direction, you know, your classic cubes and you know, rotate them and do different things. These are awful cubes, by the way. That's not even a cube. What shape is that? I don't know. But like, if you can draw cubes and you know rotate it and at angles, and you can you know draw them downward and that's not I mean that's rotated but not in the right way, right? Yeah, rhombus. Yeah, right. If you can draw your cubes, you can pretty much if you can do this, you can draw environments, right? Um, you know, you can draw some cubes from above. You can rotate those cubes from above to different directions. Let's go like this, right? If you can draw cubes from above where you're looking at the bottoms, and then you can angle those cubes at weird directions, you know, I don't know what that shape is. I'm kind of goofing around here. You know, some sort of tilted angle. Um, like then you can draw environments, and I think you can also mostly draw people, but I think you have to be a little bit better. If you can draw a cube, you can dodge a ball. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Anyway, I like this. I like this environment. It's kind of like a swampy area. pretty much what he's saying for sure. Yeah. No, I do think it's probably it's like the skill that everybody knows they need to know, but everybody also neglects it because it's annoying to like get, like, after a certain level, it's hard to build up sort of a like expertise in perspective without really doing the boring stuff. When you put it like that, it doesn't seem difficult. I mean, again, juggling isn't difficult, right? I can toss one object in the air and catch it most of the time, right? That doesn't mean that I can easily toss, right? And I can pick up another object and I can toss it in the air. And like, here's a third object. Surely now I can toss all three objects. That means I can juggle, right? I don't know if you could see that, could you? Yeah, right? Does that mean I can now juggle? No, like, I can do all three objects, but I can't juggle them all at once, right? So I think that's more like environment painting, right? Environment painting is a bit of a juggling act. You don't have to be a professional at tossing any one object in the air. You just need to have a pretty good grasp at all of them, and then you can start mixing and matching, and a lot of it is also applying them in ways that aren't as intuitive, I think. And I think perspective is a good example where you're not always applying it in the way that you learn it, right? If you learn construction drawing, right, you know, you have your eye line, you put a point on the page, you draw lines, and then you make a square, right? Well, there are some features of this that aren't talked about that often, right? So here's my square. If I were to make the same square and I were to duplicate it, right? And there's that method where you bisect it, you figure out the center line, right? This is going to be very, very poorly done, right? And then you go across the corner, find out where it meets, right? And now you were to duplicate your object, right? If you were to repeat this process, now, granted, this is not perfect, but if you were to repeat this, you would quickly get something that looks like this, right? And one of the features of this is look at the distance of here, right? And so, again, this is like, everybody knows how to draw a cube, right? Or whatever shape this is. But if you were to make this observation that look at the distance of how these things, how quickly they shorten, right? And pretty soon, halfway into this painting, they're basically a dot, right? The width of this is essentially a dot. This is super relevant, right? Because if you're doing an environment, say your environment is 3 hills, right? You have some atmospheric perspective. Actually, let's go like this. Right, if this is your environment and you have, let's say, a hill here, maybe not even a hill, just some flat ground, maybe some trees, whatever, right? Here's a big tree. Okay, so here's a tree, right? And we've got our shapes. Beautiful, right? Here's our environment. It's all done. If you want to add, say, some lakes in here or a road, one of the things that people struggle with is realizing just how fast things can go into the distance, right? And obviously it's not always that case, you know, if you have depending on your focal length. Again, another thing that a lot of people kind of neglect in environments, that like if this is your painting, right? And then now you have these being bisected, each one of these is almost the same width as before, right? Like these are almost all the same size, right? And they get small much less quickly. But anyway, the point I'm making is that one of the things is that this distance is so shortened that if you're going to draw a lake, this is going to be a round lake or nearly round. And then if you want to make that lake closer, well, now you can make it a little bit more round. And if you want to make it right up in your face, now it can actually be a round lake, right? You have to know a little bit of perspective to lay objects flat on the ground like this. And not to, you know, I didn't actually do it that well, but, you know, if you want to make objects way back here, right, again, you have to know some perspective to make these objects feel like they're laying flat on the ground. And I think this is one of those things where, like, you learn this, but not a lot of people necessarily learn how to lay things quickly on the ground. and to make them really flatten out, right? So if here's our eye line, right, these objects back here need to just be basically horizontal lines. So whatever shape I make, just horizontal lines. You're not going to get any real depth at this distance, right? Just like you're not going to get any real depth back here in any one object, right? It's just the distance is going to be too great, right? From here to here is like 20 or, you know, it's like 100 different boxes, right? We're not going to ever have a straight road that is going to extend this far. Up here, we're going to have lots of roads that go this far, but once you start getting back here, you better start turning and twisting, and you're going to get something that looks more like that, right? So early on, you can have these paths that are, you know, you don't want to go too straight in the distance for too long, right? You want to turn and then start zigzagging, and pretty soon you're just doing horizontal lines. And that's something that I think people struggle with because it's still just perspective, but it's I don't know what you want to call it. I want to say it's like an emergent property of perspective, right? Where it's not the defining feature, it's just a thing that happens due to, like, I mean, it happens, but you have to know it happens so that you can apply it to all these other things, because it's not the main feature, right? Scale is pretty popular. Like, we all know things get smaller when they get further back. That's great, right? That's an easy one. People don't struggle with that. People know to make things small. But to learn to flatten them out, that gets harder. Also, hi Skittle, again. You Shutter even? Yeah. Oops, I meant to say indeed. Ah, E. E. And also, thanks for the hydrate earlier. I needed it. So yeah, basically, environment is painting is like juggling. Actually, I think all art is like juggling. I don't think there's any skill in art that is terribly hard to learn. And I'm not saying that in like a braggy way. I mean, like, you know, I think most concepts you could learn in a single class, like in a single hour long session. You could learn anything you learn. It's, you know, it's not like some advanced physics topics where you need, you know, 100,000 prerequisites to even grasp what they're talking about. Like, you don't, most things in art you need zero prerequisites, and you can more or less just learn it and you'll understand it. It's applying it that's hard. I mean, I'm sure there are some more complicated things, especially around. Sorry, I have hiccups. Especially around like composition, I think there's probably some more complicated things because you have to know at least something about composition to know how and when and why and where to, like, say, soften certain edges but not other edges, right? You can't just someone can't just tell you a hard rule of like, this is where you soften edges and this is where you don't, because it kind of depends on all these other things also. So I think that's probably one of the things, you know, as they relate to composition, you start to get into some, but again, this is kind of true for everything, I guess. I don't know. Like, there's choices you can make in perspective that are going to affect how the viewer reads your scene. And so you have to be aware of those things when you plan your painting. I don't know. I don't know. Man, I'm feeling it already. I'm tired. Oh no. We're only an hour in, and I'm already exhausted. Oh dear. Oh dear. Speaking of exhausted, if anybody would like to share their work or what they're working on, I would appreciate it. That way it can give me time to, I don't know, look at something else. Let's do... So just like it before with our big overlapping shapes, let's do this, but with on their side. Also, if you're just starting environments, don't use a textured brush like this. It doesn't make things easier. Not in this stage anyway. Maybe in rendering, but texture brushes are overrated. They are actually, this brush is so nice. I gotta say, I've ever since I used it the first time, I've just been using it constantly since. It has this nice texture, but it also has a secondary brush feature, which lets you get these silky smooth, um, this like transparency. So it has a very nice coverage that isn't too textury, but you can also get a nice texture if you want. So it's just such a nice it's such a nice brush. Skittle, I didn't ask you, but I'm going to. What have you been working on lately? Actually, and Casey, you too, since I'm just calling out all my lurkers now. What have you what are you working on? Do you have any projects ongoing? And I don't know if you heard earlier, but I've been looking a little bit into conventions. I still need to figure some things out, but I've been looking into some conventions. I feel so called out. I know. Might some of those poses from this month? Ooh, let's take a look. Some of the poses from this month. Oh, these are so good. Wow, look at these. Ooh, you got the poses from above. I love the some of the faces on them. Like the roller skater person or the roller blader with the rosy cheeks. It's great. These are really cool. I'm working on boring stuff for my stream calendar for the year. Now that I finally found a template that works. See, you say that like, oh, it's just the boring stuff. The fact that you do that at all though is impressive to me. Cause I just don't do that stuff. I don't have a stream calendar. Are you kidding me? Planning stuff? Psh. Everything else lately has just been doodles and studies. Let's take a look. Skittle says one sci-fi commission, one PNG tuber commission, one personal piece for stream, and one attempt at a draw this in your style challenge for LC art. Oh, LC art! I haven't seen LC art in a while. That's fun. You know what, Skittle? You sound like you're busy. Sci-fi commission, PNG tuber commission, personal piece for stream, and one attempt at a draw. Dang, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of arting. I think Skittle's the busiest of all of us. Pretty much everything else lately has just been doodles and studies. Oh, let's take a look. I think this is the last piece I even kind of printed on was this one, or painted on was this one. Reading is hard today. Oh, I like this one. Going back at the going to be poking at this work in progress again on stream tonight. When was this posted? Is this for today? February 24. No. As long as I can. Internet has been a bit iffy lately. Wish me luck. I like that. I saw LCR on the first time the other day in ages. I need to check into that draw this in your style. Are those still the thing on Blue Sky? I think draw this in your styles are always a thing. I don't think they ever have gone away. It's just when an artist who has a following wants to do one. I feel like it's one of the eternal art challenge formats that'll just always be around. Anyone can create one, anyone can join one. LC has their Draw This in Your Style posted on their Instagram and their Blue Sky. That's fun. Casey says, yeah, I had to cancel afternoon artwork streams shortly after posting that image and haven't made time to work on it since. Oh, that's sad. I'm hoping I will be able to start them up again soon. I need the accountability to finish more work. You know what? Oh, speaking of accountability. Okay, so first, I obviously just want to say every Twitch art is amazing. I know it's not a novel idea that I have this opinion. I like the community. They're great. I have used other Twitch streams many, many times to be productive and to work alongside people. But today on Reddit, I found someone recommending Twitch to a person. It was a brand new post. Somebody was like, are there, they were basically asking about like work along type like Zoom calls or that kind of thing, and people are like, use Twitch. There's a bunch of people, and I'm like, yay! It's so nice to see people recommending Twitch art to other people, and yeah, so that's a thing. Um, yeah, it is. It's cool. It's cool when people are like, oh, you want art community? Go to Twitch. Because I've been trying to I'm kind of a little bit. I may be a little bit self-interested because obviously I have a stream, but really I'm more of a rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing. Like I just want more people to hang out on Twitch. More. I want to discover more people through Twitch for my own viewing pleasure, but also just meet cool people, and yeah, maybe more people come here too, but but I think overall it's just a good format. I think working alongside people, sharing, and I feel like the community experience is just so much more valuable than a random like on Instagram. I don't care if people give me hearts on my posts. Like when people are actively here and they're sharing their work and I get to see it, and you guys get to see other people's work, and there's a community interacting with each other, I feel like that is so much more valuable. Um, because it's like, I don't know, real people, and it's not just them, mindlessly scrolling and double tapping their screen every once in a while to leave a heart. Like it's like they're here. They came here within the last hour. They chose to be here. They come back every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday or whatever days, and it's just there's something, I don't know, and that's been sort of my stance on social media for a long time, which is like I have social medias and I will keep having them, but the main way that they grow is by talking to people, whether it's elsewhere online or on Twitch or whatever, and I then can share it, or even in real life, right? If somebody's like, "Oh, you do art. What sort of stuff do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, here's my Instagram," and then I'm like, I'll be like, "Do you have an Instagram?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course, everybody has an Instagram." And then I'll tell them my username, and then they'll go and look, and then if they like my art, they can follow me, and if not, then they don't have to. But like that's how I get people to find me, right? It's not a reliance on the algorithm as much. It's a lot of just talking to people, mostly online because real life scares me. The larger the art category it's on Twitch, the better it benefits all. Yeah, and it also, the bigger the art category grows, the higher up in the ranks of other Twitch categories, which means more people from elsewhere on Twitch who maybe would never even know that there's art on Twitch will then come in to do art. And in fact, that's the response of a lot of people, which is, I didn't know there was art on Twitch. Yeah, there's like, 10,000 of us at any given point on, at any time of day, there's about 10,000-ish people. And that's pretty cool. I'm a huge advocate for it just because art is so isolating. Yeah, exactly. And even if you have no intention of chatting, right? Just lurking and knowing that someone, and maybe this is like, my self-diagnosed, maybe or maybe not ADHD talking. Uh, there is like, if I'm just left to my own devices, I might not paint, right? I might just play games. It's so easy to distract myself with things that are easier to consume and easier to do than art. But when I'm in an art stream, there's sort of a motivating factor. It's like this person is doing art right now and they're really good. And I'm never gonna get that good unless I'm also doing art, because the reason they're good is because they're actually doing the art, right? I actually think about this a lot whenever I see like Marco Bucci's like color tutorials where he explains, he does, he'll draw his sphere and he'll light it and then he'll show you how to paint it. Like he has done more tutorials of that thing than I have ever done of that in my entire life, right? That's not even counting how many he's done not for tutorials, right? Like just in, there are people who, and again, this is like and I'm not, again, I'm not the greatest example, and so I don't really like using myself as an example, but like every time I give this little spiel about, values and making your shapes, right? And you have your foreground, midground, background, and you can make different shapes and you can draw shapes, you can extrude these up. Every time I've given this little spiel, like that's essentially like a mini version of practicing, right? And there's probably someone out there that has seen me do it, dozens of times, but has never done it themselves. And again, I'm not saying you have to go and do that. Everybody wants to do different stuff, but like there's a part of me that is like, I don't want to say it guilt trips me in. Heather Rinda, hello. I got back from a doctor's appointment and hopped in here. I have a YouTube channel and I thought of streaming on Twitch, and what you are saying is making more and more convinced. You should do it, or even if you don't want to stream, just hanging out in Twitch. I mean, everybody who started on Twitch, every single, also hello by the way. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for popping in. Everybody who started on Twitch started because they were a viewer, and then they sort of, like, for example, my story is I discovered art on Twitch because I liked video games, and then I found art, and art was really fun, and then I started getting better at art, and then I found a community of people who I would do art along with, and then pretty soon after, they've encouraged me to share my art and all that, they encouraged me to start streaming. And at some point I was like, well, if I'm already painting all this time, I might as well be streaming it, and then I can be held a bit more accountable. And so I started using it as sort of an accountability tool, and before long, it's like now there's an awesome community here of great artists. You meet cool people who do all sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, I don't think everybody needs to stream. I will say streaming can be a little distracting if your goal is to make good art. I think that's always an important thing to throw out there, because you are splitting your focus, and so if you need to really, especially if you're learning, if you're really trying to dig deep and build some new muscle memory type thing, and really sort of, or brain muscle memory, whatever you want to call it, sometimes it's a little hard to do that while reading chat and juggling and stream and doing all that stuff. But if you just want like people to hang out with and art along with, Twitch is great for that. So yeah, I do say everybody should try streaming. If you're an artist and you think you might like it, try it. If you don't like it, no big deal, no harm done. At the very least, you've learned how to set up some sort of streaming software, and now you can record your process easier, or you can edit videos easier. Like, you're gonna learn some stuff, because setting up a stream can kind of be a pain in the butt. So, worst case scenario, you learn some things. And you also learn that you don't like streaming, But yeah, you should try it. Do it. Everybody should stream. More streamers, great. Skittle says I still need to fix my multi-stream for YouTube. I have ISP issues that are getting in the way of it currently. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, that's another thing. There is sort of a barrier to entry. You have to have stable enough internet. Well, actually, that's not true. Casey, not to poke fun at Casey, but Casey is a streamer on Twitch as well, and you should follow her. She's awesome. And she doesn't have stable internet, and she does pretty good. So, her streams are great, even with disconnects. So, yeah, you don't even need good internet. Sorry, Casey. No, Yeah, I would say typically good internet would be a requirement, but in some cases, I think you can get away with it. Your internet's been so terrible in the studio lately. To be fair, I haven't streamed from the studio in about almost a month. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think last time I was in your stream, you had a poll going on, making bets of whether or not your stream would crash, and so that was something. Ooh, let me get some blue in here. Okay. So speaking of art, what I am doing is just little idea sketches, trying to figure out what I want to paint, and then yeah, mostly just fantasy environments. That's sort of what I'm doing today, which is always what I'm doing. Me painting environments? Get out. Get out. Heather said, I'm doing good, thanks. I hope you're doing well too. I am doing well. The ADHD accountability thing is such a good point. I stream Tuesdays on YouTube and it has really helped me to show up to make art. I also love the connection art can be isolating. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that was a huge thing for me. And, I started like 5 years ago, and to this day, I still stream 3 days a week. But I will say, I no longer use stream for accountability to art. And in fact, if I actually want to do my best work, I have to do it off of stream. But it does sort of, because now I show up because the community is awesome. I just like hanging out and painting stuff. There's a little bit of like education vibes as well because I'm not, I'm one of not that many people who do environments. So, being able to talk about environments and answer questions about how I do stuff, and it's a nice. I enjoy that aspect of it. I really enjoy that community aspect, and so even if I'm not making the greatest art, that's fine. I don't need to be. Not that I ever do anyway, but yeah. So my motivation has kind of shifted. It started as an accountability tool, and then it became such a fun and enjoyable thing to do that I started prioritizing it. I treat it kind of like a job in the sense that like I'm not going to schedule something over my Twitch time because that is like I don't know. It's like when people have a, you know, once a week get together and they play poker or something, or they get together and they are on a bowling league. Like you don't schedule stuff over your bowling league, right? I'm not in a bowling league. I don't bowl, but if I was in a bowling league, that time would be at that time slot, right? You treat it like it's important because other people rely on you to be there. And so that's kind of how Twitch is for me. I've made a promise to myself and to you guys that I'm gonna be here, and then I show up. And so I want to show up, right? It's fun. I enjoy it. But so yeah, accountability aspect is great. But sometimes you do have to reevaluate sort of um, like why you're streaming in a way because I think if people stream for like, oh, I want to be rich and famous, like yeah, good luck. That's not going to happen, but not through streaming. But if you just want, to make art friends and have a good time and stream on and off and have a way to record your your progress and your process, because it's, especially YouTube, especially, right? When you're live streaming on YouTube, it saves your past streams right there, and so it's you have an archive of all of your streams, and it's great. I mean, you streaming on YouTube is amazing. I started streaming on YouTube for that exact reason. So like right now I'm live on YouTube, I think, or I should be. It's just so that it can save my stream. Even though I don't really interact with the YouTube side, I mean, I have chat here, so I can read if somebody chats on YouTube. But mostly, it's Twitch, right? I interact on Twitch, and Twitch is my home. YouTube is just my VOD upload station. The second time I ever watched a Twitch stream was yours, Casey Snow. The first was Gingy Beer. I thought you were fantastic. I don't remember any internet issues. Oh, that's good. That's cool that you've been to Casey's stream then. tune in next time for Stiller Goes Bowling in an IRL stream. Ah, yes. Now, I actually do like bowling. Bowling is fun. It's been a long time since I've been bowling. Bowling was always one of those things where it always felt expensive. And like you have to be okay with ruining your games in trying to practice, right? Like I never could muster up the courage, so to speak, in bowling to try and learn how to like throw a curveball because I knew that I would just every time I've tried it like twice and every time it just goes straight into the gutter. And so I'm like, yep, no more of this. Like I'm not gonna try this anymore. And so I just go back to like, the normie way of bowling, which is just bowl it super straight. Um, and so like I never felt like I could improve without actively failing, and I didn't want to throw money down the drain to try it. So I never got good at bowling. Um, anyway, I don't know why I started talking about bowling. Moxlight says, I started streaming this month in order not to be alone while doing art studies, and it made me spend more time doing art. Yeah, that's one of the beauties of it is it you spend more time doing art. And again, I do want to point out, especially on Twitch, maybe even more on Twitch, it is really hard to grow. It's not like people are just going to automatically show up to your stream. You might have a few people trickle in here and there, but it's not easy. And so, I don't want to give like false, hope to people. But I do think they're, but if you can get a few people to show up or make a few connections and, other people know about your stream and they want to show up, maybe other streamers raid you or whatever. Yeah, it's great. I'm considering to start streaming at some point. Do it. Start streaming. Everybody should start streaming. And again, it's, not everybody's gonna enjoy it, but it's worth trying. Best way to grow on Twitch is to meet other people and become community regulars at some. Yep, I agree. It's really the secret is really to spend time in other people's streams, get to know the community. One of the benefits of art streams compared to like a game stream is that typically art streams are a lot shorter. Most artists are streaming for 2 to 4 hours max. There are a few crazy people out there who stream for like 10 hours at a time, but mostly it's pretty short streams, which has sometimes even just an hour, right? And so you get a lot of community jumping. Everybody raids people at the end of their stream. So if you're in one person's stream, you might go from Casey's stream to my stream to Skittle's stream back to Casey's stream because she streams twice some days. And pretty soon everybody there knows everybody. And so you go into someone's chat and say, hey, everybody. And people are like, hey, I know you. And other people, just chatters, not streamers, just chatters are recognizing your name in chat. And it's just like this very tight-knit community. And that's kind of one of the strongest parts about the art category. And also, we like to see other people's art. So, I know you're not supposed to self-promo, but, saying things like, when I asked Casey what she's working on, and she's like, I'm working on, or no, sorry, Skittle said, I'm working on stream stuff. Or no, maybe it was Skittle. No, Casey said, I'm working on stream schedule stuff, right? Anybody who's in my chat will be like, oh, this Casey Snow person streams. And then they can go and check her out, right? I don't think of that as self-promo. I asked the question, she answered, it happened to include streaming in there, and now people know she streams. And maybe you've been in my stream more before, and maybe you've been in Skittle's stream before, and you already recognize Casey, and suddenly, this person who is a regular in these communities, now you find out that they also stream. Guess whose stream you're going to go check out, because you're already friends with them, and they're active in the community. Like, that's the way, in my opinion, the best way to grow on Twitch is to be active, be nice, make friends, and then occasionally people will find out that you stream because it's hard not, it's going to come up, right? At some point. So that's my advice. But again, it's a time investment. It's not, not everybody has that. Some people do really well at it. I think, I want to say somebody like Anthony Wheeler is kind of an exception to this. I don't find that, maybe he does lurk on Twitch a lot. I don't think he does, but he's really good about making connections with other streamers in various ways. He's really good at reaching out to people and being very vocal, an advocate for other streamers. He'll raid people, of course, but like he I feel like he almost has like a in some ways like a business approach to it, where he's very like a bit more networky in some ways, which I think is cool. I think that is it's a different way of doing it, and it absolutely works. And yeah, I don't know. I think ultimately it just comes down to being a nice person, and especially if you do good art, that's even a bonus. But even that doesn't, really just, you just got to be a person who people want to hang out with to some degree for some reason. I don't know why people are here, to be honest. But yeah, Casey says, but yes, getting to know familiar names in chat is how it happens. The art community is really good about asking about what each other's working on too, which helps a lot. At least most artists in the community are like that. Yeah, I haven't really met any artists who don't like people to share. There are cases where I think, some people kind of take advantage of it, and so there are some artists who, tend to not ask people to share art in chat, and they just like, if you want to join my Discord, you're welcome to dump your art in there, but no links in chat. So like people set their own boundaries, but overall, yeah, everybody's very, very encouraging to share. I will say, it says, Leg Owlet, how's it going? How's it going, Owl? Hope you're doing well. Beats, hello. Beats says, I found Casey through this chat. Yeah, we raid Casey all the time. Casey's awesome. Also, I realized I kind of stopped painting. I was just so busy rambling that I completely forgot to paint. Whoops. That's the hardest part about streaming for me, is to actually do art. I forget to paint. It's a problem I have. I'm trying to get over it. I try to get better, but it is difficult. I've noticed that I see a lot of streamers commenting each other's streams. I love the community aspect. Yeah, and a lot of the streamers are, especially like right before or after you stream, there's a lot of wiggle room. A lot of people sort of will watch streamers to get in sort of the mood of streaming for the day, and so you can start your stream off. And again, I'm not an advocate of like super sleazy techniques when it comes to networking. It's kind of a gross word. But there is a lot of things like, being active in streams that are live or that will be live while you're streaming. So like if you're going to stream later, you watch streams before so that when you are streaming, they can then raid you, right? Again, I'm not saying this is how you should decide who to hang out in their stream, because, nobody owes you a raid ever. But a lot of times viewing streams that are live before you go live, right? So like if you're gonna stream in an hour or two, right, hanging out here, like, yeah, maybe I'll raid you, right? Because I'm gonna pick from the available people. So it kind of makes sense to like the people after and before. And of course, when I'm raiding someone, right, if I raid Skittle, like, of course I'm gonna be familiar with his community, right? Because I'm going to his stream, and my community is now becoming familiar with his stream. So at some point, if he's live when I'm, if he's ending his stream when I'm live, he might come over here, right? And not my goal. Skittle never needs to raid me, but it could happen someday. Please, Skittle, raid me. Kidding. No. But yeah, I don't think Skittle will ever raid me because he's never actually streaming. He's always streaming long past when I stream. But yeah. Okay, I usually lurk in streams. I find myself feeling awkward chatting in most chats. Yeah. I actually feel the same. I typically don't chat. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here. That's kind of fun. Some sort of shape. Joe begging for raids. Tempted to clip that but resisted. I'm not begging for raids. It was a joke. It was a joke. I think I've only been able to raid you like 2 or 3 times, unfortunately. Yeah, no. Time zones are different, and you stream later than I do, and yeah. No, I would never... That's the thing. You can never expect somebody to raid you, because sometimes they just don't stream at the right time. But that's where just, like, hanging out and... Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't... that was a complete joke. Maybe not a good joke. Maybe it was in poor taste. But there it was. I said it. No taking it back online. That's another quality of streaming. You say stupid things and they're there forever. Casey says, I know. Besides, all anyone has to do is glance at your art and be like, whoa, let's raid there. Wait, is that a compliment? Thank you. That's very nice. It took me a moment, but I don't know about... I mean... You know what's funny, though? I actually... Because I do, I don't know if I have a choice in the matter. This is just one of the ways my brain works. Like, again, I don't actively try to do all these things of, like, intentionally networking. Like, I just hang out on Twitch, and it just, if people find out I stream, great. If they don't, that's fine too. Yeah, I'm not making friends so that they can raid me, right? That's sleazy. I don't do that. But I still can't, I still like to think about the mechanics of, like, how that works. And it's funny that you mentioned that people will see your work and raid you. This is one of the things that I've thought about. Like, I've had to come to terms with. I do sketches on stream, right? I don't always have the most beautiful art on my screen at any given time, right? It's not like I'm working on masterpieces and I'm rendering them and, there's adding that last layer of polish and people are like, ooh, this guy's really good, right? No, I'm doing blobby sketches. And so a lot of times the stuff on my screen isn't good, right? And so that's actually... There's an element of, like, if all you ever do is line work on a white canvas, I don't know, I do think it's probably a little bit harder to get people to click on your stream. Whereas if you're doing something that shows a clear level of proficiency, as Casey just said, then I think it's better. And do my sketches? I don't know. I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate it. But enough with the flattery. I can't take a compliment. Do you use references when you draw this landscape? Right now, I'm not using references. I do use references, but generally, it'll be a little bit later. So like if I, let's say I wanted to paint on this one, and this, if this was going to be, the painting that I want to paint for today, I might go and find references of, certain types of trees, the lighting and all that stuff. I can do a lot of it without references, because they're simple shapes, and it's not, I don't need to know everything about, the construction of it. Um, and a lot of these paintings are more or less color like experiments. So for example, something like this, I may take an overlay layer and say I want to darken the shadows. So let's grab some cool blues, and then I'll add some dark blue over the shadows, and I'll see if I like the way the colors look in that. And maybe I do, and so I'll leave it. And so a lot of it is just sort of experimentation. I do a lot of playing around with color and experimenting, and I try to learn over time what works, what doesn't. I obviously, I do watch and learn a lot of stuff on the side. So like, I feel like I know quite a bit of theory, so I can practice it when I'm painting. That's mostly how it works for me. Uh-oh, am I lagging? Uh-oh. Is my internet dead? Uh-oh. Okay, well, I'll restart then.